We have Genesis chapter 31, getting close to the end. The first verse we'll be starting at will be verse 43. So a brief review, what's happened in Genesis chapter 31. Jacob has been staying at Laban's place for, at this point, 20 years, 14 years serving Laban for the marriage of his daughters, and 6 years serving Laban, and as wages getting the off-color sheep, goats, and cattle of the flock. And in those 6 years, the Lord really blessed Jacob and gave him great wealth and great flocks and herds. So Laban's sons are blaming Jacob for taking all that is their father's wealth, even though the way Jacob's been shepherding the flocks, there'd be no accusation of stealing at all. He's keeping them 50 miles apart. He's letting Laban know the full accountability of everything. And so Laban's sons are saying this. Jacob checks out Laban to see how Laban's regarding him, and he finds out Laban's countenance is not favorable towards him, that Laban's not happy to see him anymore. So he talks to each of his wives and describes to them the situation. And that night before he talked to his wives, the Lord gave him a vision telling him to return to his own people and that God would be with him. So he tells his wives that. His wives basically say that Laban hasn't provided for us at all, and he's tried to steal the things that are ours by changing your wages, as Jacob says 10 times. So they say, go and do whatever God has told you. So Jacob leaves while Laban's shearing his sheep. That means Laban's up at his flock, but Jacob's put a 3-day journey between the flocks. So Jacob is with his own flock. He leaves. It takes Laban a couple days to hear what has happened. He learns on the 3rd day that Jacob has fled. So he takes all his brothers, his relatives, which he has a lot of because this town was basically started by his family. He takes them all and he chases after Jacob, catches up with him after 7 days on Mount Gilead, like the tallest mountain as you're going into Israel, right on the other side of the Jordan River. And the night before Jacob catches up with him, Laban catches up with Jacob. The Lord gives him in a dream to not speak to Jacob either good or bad. So when Laban comes up with Jacob, he basically says, look, you've done wrong. You've taken my daughters away like prisoners. That part isn't true. But the part, you didn't let me kiss my sons and my daughters farewell. He's talking about his grandsons there. That part was true. You didn't let me send you away with a feast. He asks Jacob why. Why did you leave so soon? And Jacob basically said, because I'm afraid. They also have a conversation. Laban accuses Jacob of stealing his household idols. And Jacob's response is, with whomever you find them, don't let them live. Go ahead and search whatever, because Jacob's positive they didn't take them, not realizing that his wife did take them. So Laban goes, searches everything tent by tent. The rest of his entourage is probably just waiting there, thinking he brought us out 7 days journey for this. Because realize he's taken a large group of people, probably with military force, for 7 days. Then he's just looking for one set of stolen items. Can't find it at all because Rachel has it underneath her own saddle and is using the excuse that she's in her natural cycle of why she's not standing up. And so when he doesn't find them, Laban rebukes them and says, let all of you, our brothers here, judge between the two of us. Like, look, I've served you all this time. You changed my wages, but God didn't let you hurt me. I went through all the drought. I went through all the cold. Whenever something was stolen, I paid the cost for it. Whenever something was killed by wild beasts, I reimbursed you for that. And through all of this, God judged between our case. He gave me what I now have. And basically, why did you accuse me of stealing? And at the end of that, Laban now has, let's make a covenant. Let's make a treaty together. That's verse 43. Do I have a volunteer to read verses 43 to 48? Okay, I will read verses 43 to 48. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegar-Sharutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day, therefore was the name of it called Gilead. These are the verses we finished with last week. Laban is basically saying, I can't hurt my own family. He's saying, even though everything you have is mine, which isn't true, God very much gave Jacob all of this. He said, I can't hurt my own family. What can I do this day unto my own daughters? So they're going to make a peace treaty. Remember, they're on the top of this mountain, which for us would be a very tall hill, but it overlooks the entire country round about because Mount Gilead is by far the tallest thing in this area. And they're building this heap of stones on the top of the mountain. So this is going to be visible for a long place, the place of this treaty. And it says they did eat and drink upon. The idea probably is Jacob and Laban themselves both sat on the top of this heap and ate together to show that they're both in agreement here. Laban calls it Jegar-Sharutha, which in Aramaic means the heap of witness. Jacob calls it Gilead, which in Hebrew means the heap of witness. It's a heap of stones that they're using. This is the witness, this is the pillar, this is the sign that we've made a treaty together. So, any questions about these verses? Okay, let's continue verses 49 to 54. Do I have a volunteer to read verses 49 to 54? Go ahead, Yuri. Thank you. Great reading. So, there's one other name they have for this heap of stones. That's the sign of the covenant. That's Mizpah. Mizpah means watchtower because Laban's the one that says in verse 49, the Lord watch between me and thee when we're absent one from another. That is, this covenant's something that will be a sign. I won't be the one trying to enforce this. Laban basically realizes he was wrong because that's what he was trying to do and coming down and chasing after Jacob. But he says here, I won't be the one to enforce it. God will judge between the two of us while we're absent one from another because they pretty much both know they're not going to see each other again the rest of their lives. Laban probably knows he's not going to see his daughters again. And so he's saying, look, Lord will watch between us. This is a watchtower. If you will afflict my daughters, being treating them harshly, or take otherwise besides my daughters, no man's with us. See God's witness between me and thee. So Laban here, for the first time we know of in his entire life, is greatly honoring the Lord and is trusting the Lord that the Lord will do what's right here. And that may possibly be with the way the Lord rebuked Laban. He realized the Lord worked the situation out exactly how it needed to go. But he's saying here, God's the witness. God will see if you're the one treating my daughters harshly, your wives harshly. God will see it. And so then Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap and behold this pillar. There's a pillar that Jacob set up in the heap of stones that Laban and his family set up. They're all in the same area, which I have cast between me and thee. Laban's probably at this point walked to the other side and said, I set this pillar and this heap between the two of us, and I won't pass beyond this pillar to you, and you won't pass beyond that pillar to me for harm. So they're saying this pillar is boundary. Neither one of us is going to cross behind it to try to attack the other. And then verse 53 is the strongest statement that Laban says honoring the Lord in the Bible. And it's the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. Nahor, remember, is Laban's father. So here, Abraham would be Jacob's grandfather. Nahor would be Laban's father. Both of them came out here following Terah. We know at least Nahor knew who the Lord was. We don't know if he served him, but we know he knew who the Lord was. And he's saying, oh, look, God will judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. So Laban's swearing this oath here, asking God to judge between them. And then Jacob swearing by the fear of his father Isaac is another name for God. It's not that he's swearing because he's scared of Isaac. He's swearing by the fear. You could capitalize the F there. The person that Isaac fears, the Lord. Jacob swears by him the same covenant, that neither will pass beyond the others, neither will pass to the other's territory for harm. So on the top of this mountain, they swore in a covenant that each will trust the Lord to judge and will not try to take matters into their own hands. And verse 54, then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount to honor the Lord, and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. So originally it seems just Jacob and Laban eating to confirm the covenant. Now they basically have their entire family and entourages together. They all eat together. This is probably the farewell feast that Laban was going to give Jacob. At least he thought if Jacob had left honestly, they had this here. Lasts all night, so it's a pretty big feast. And early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. So at the very end, Laban does exactly what he said he wanted to do when he rebuked Jacob at the start. He kissed his sons and daughters. The idea is he kissed them farewell and blessed them. Remember, the word sons can also mean grandchildren. So he's kissing Jacob's children, his grandchildren. And upon doing that, upon blessing them, Laban returns back and is not going to Israel anymore. We see that, I would say, he trusts the Lord to judge between this and to take care of his family and his daughters. This has already been evident. Any comments about these verses?
Just a thought there that with Laban, he came to a situation he could not manipulate. And sometimes God brings people to that kind of situation, so they've got to look to God.
Absolutely.
He couldn't protect his daughters. Not that he dealt with them properly before, but the fact is now he cannot have a hands-on approach, and he's got to trust someone greater than himself.
Absolutely.
So that was like you mentioned, it seems to be he has at least a recognition of the true and living God, if not a genuine faith. Both.
So that's absolutely true for those listening online, that God brought Laban to a situation that he couldn't control, that he had no more power in. So it was basically bringing him to trust the Lord. He needed to trust someone greater than himself. And now Laban returns. And as far as a comment of true faith, yes, we don't know either way. We do know that Laban's family in that area of Syria is not known for any faith in the Lord. So if there was some, it died out very quickly. With that, we go to Genesis chapter 32.
Can I just
Go ahead.
At least the outline I have.
Yes.
Doesn't really mention chapter 32 until the very, very end. Maybe there was.
So,
I don't know if copies were different.
if you see point 3, verse 55 to 32, 2.
No, this one doesn't have that.
So, I know I had printer problems. I did not realize that any copy got printed wrong.
So this is how to show you. I'll go get see if there's some that are. No.
So, yep, only half of this is how it should be. The other half was outlined from before. So, definitely apologize for that. My outline is very different from this.
I just wanted so people, if they were following, they would say, "Where is he at?"
So,
the backside does begin.
yeah, yes,
right?
the backside has it on the outline that I have, which hopefully a lot of you have the one that is correct. Point 3 is Jacob's return, being his return back to the promised land. And that's the point we're on now. It goes to chapter 32, verse 2. And I apologize for that specifically. I had a difficulty that Google Docs refused to print on the lower printer. Somebody's changed settings, it did not print. I printed it on the upper printer. And apparently in the process of doing that, it undid changes I made to that document. So, all that to mention, chapter 32, verses 1 and 2, and Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. So, Jacob went on his way. We know from before, his way is he's heading back to central Israel, the northern territory of where Isaac lived. He's with Mount Gilead on the east side of the Jordan. So he's now crossed the Jordan. He's in that general area, eastern Israel. And the angels of God meet him again. That is, he sees the angels. As far as we know, there's no direct interaction here. But when he sees the angels, he says, "This is God's host." When you see host in the Old Testament, it's referring to army. In pretty much every single usage, that's what host is referring to. So he's like, he sees all the angels and he's like, "That's God's army over there." He calls the name of the place Mahanaim. That means two hosts. It means two armies. That is, there's his there and there's God's, the angels. And so he names the city accordingly. This is the first time he's been back to the promised land in over 20 years. But now he is. And just as the Lord gave him a vision of angels as he left, he gets one as he returns. Yes, Larry? Oh. Any questions or comments? We then have, this would be the last point on the bottom of the first page, if the first one turned out incorrectly for you. And that's verses 3 through 6. Jacob sins to Esau. Yes, Matilda? Absolutely. So, Lord willing, next week I'll have the map again because the geography here becomes important where Esau's living, where Esau's coming with. But Jacob sends messengers to where Esau is living. We're talking about an area that's just to the side of the promised land. It's not in it. I'll have the map the next time because Esau's basically going to invite Jacob to go back with him. But we have here, he sends Esau the true account of what's been happening the last 20 years. I've sojourned with Laban. The word sojourned, we don't use that anymore. It just means lived as a foreigner. I've lived with Laban, but I wasn't directly part of his family or his people. And stayed there until now. It's been 20 years. And then he explains that he has possessions, oxen, asses referring to donkeys, flocks, that's the sheep and goats, men servants and women servants, and I sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. So he's saying, look, I'm your servant. Here's why I've been staying away for 20 years. I have plenty of possessions, and I'm telling you to find grace, to find favor in your sight. Basically, I've come back to the land. And the messengers return and say, Esau's coming with 400 men, which that's not a normal response if you have peaceful intentions. It's not, you hear your brother's coming back to a different territory. Oh, I'll take 400 people. I'm sure this is a good peaceful gathering. So, all that to say, remember, Abraham had 318. Esau has 400 people with him, so Esau's been doing well. Jacob has a whole lot less than 400 people with him, although he may be wealthier than Esau in terms of possessions. Because we'll find out in other parts of the Bible, Esau was basically the chief of Edom. But all that to say, he's coming with 400 people. Same thing as with Laban. This is a couple days' journey, although in this case, the messengers are going on ahead. They're not going to be that far ahead of Esau and his army. So it's not like with Laban, you have a bunch of time to prepare. Here it's one day to prepare. Esau's coming with 400 men. So any comments before we see Jacob's reaction to this? Go ahead, Steve.
I had a curious question. Where Jacob's encounter with the angel, what kind of location was that before they crossed the water? Said cross the water, didn't say.
It's right across the Jordan River. We're into Israel, but we're barely into Israel. It would be actually very close in the land of Galilee where Jesus Christ ministered. It's that general area.
Okay. Well, he's got rid of my question.
Yeah. So, any other comments here? Do I have a volunteer who's willing to read verses 7 through 12? Go ahead, Obi.
Jacob said, O God of my father, and God of my father, the Lord which saidst unto me, return unto thy country, to thy king. Now do well. I am not worthy of all the mercies of the olive tree, which thou hast shown unto thy servant, for which thy mouth I have passed over the stream. And now I have come to it. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear lest he will come and slay me, and the mother with children. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered.
Thank you very much. So in these verses 7 and 8, we see Jacob's first response is to panic. It's the response that doesn't do anything profitable. In verse 7, he's greatly afraid and distressed. So both very stressed and dismayed, and he's afraid. Obviously, he can't fight 400 people. He wasn't planning to fight Esau anyway. The Lord has mentioned the Lord would protect him. His first thought, though, is we need to worry about escape strategies. So he divides all his people and possessions into two different companies, thinking if Esau escapes one, attacks one, the other has enough time to escape. So at least half of my family and people and such will survive, is his idea. There's no thought at all about fighting. Esau's force is too great for him. So his first two verses are his response in panic, that at least I can save half of my people and half of my family. And then he realizes, then he prays, similar to Laban having no power in the situation and trusting God. Here Jacob is praying directly. And Jacob starts off by reminding the Lord of his promises. O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Lord, which saidst unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. He's saying, you directly told me to return to your country and your kindred. And so reminding him of his promise. Verse 10, He's talking about the goodness of God and that he's not worthy of it. He says, I'm not worthy of the least of all of the mercies. When you see the word mercies in the Old Testament, it's very often the Hebrew word chesed, which is very hard to translate into English because it means so much. But it basically has the idea of God being perfectly kind as well as showing perfect faithfulness. I'm not worthy of the least of all of that and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. Jacob saying, I don't deserve any of the kindnesses and mercies you've shown me and any of the truth you've showed me. And then he explains why. For with my staff I pass over this pass over this Jordan. That is, when Jacob went over to go to Laban's country, all he had was his walking staff. As far as we know, then from this verse, he didn't even bring camels or anything. He just traveled himself. And he says, now I've become 2 bands. The idea is a band is the specific size of the 2 companies he divided. He's saying, you've given me enough. I have 2 companies of all the animals and all the people. So he's realizing that's all God's blessing, which he has definitely accounted in the past. And now he's specifically basically saying he's grateful to the Lord that he didn't deserve any of this and God gave him all of it. And right after that comes the prayer in verse 11. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. That's his prayer request here. He asks for God's deliverance and then gives the reason, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother with the children. He's talking about he's fearing for his own life, for his wife's life, and for his children's life, which all of that would make sense. If you just send a peaceful message to your brother, you know your brother really wanted to kill you when you left 20 years ago, you send a peaceful message to him, and he brings 400 men with him towards you, you're thinking exactly the same intent. Probably every single person would make that judgment, like you don't bring 400 people if you're on a peaceful mission. So, then the last verse of his prayer in verse 12 is reminding God of God's promises again. He starts with God's promises in verse 9. He finishes with God's promises in verse 12. And thou saidest, I will surely do thee good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So he's asking for deliverance, reminding God here, you've given me all this great mercy and truth. You've given me all the blessings I have. And you said, I will surely do thy good. And I'm talking about multiplying thy descendants like the sand of the sea, uncountably many. So that's Jacob's prayer. And of Jacob's preparations, that's the one that actually does something. The preparations of dividing his family into 2 companies, you're actually going to see in a few verses he does the opposite. He rejoins his family. When my brother comes and attacks me, I'll at least save half of my family. That's not a good philosophy to have. But praying to the Lord and asking the Lord for deliverance, he's already seen God's power to accomplish the impossible. And in this case, that's absolutely where he should have been trusting. It's where he was trusting. Any questions or comments here? Go ahead, Steve.
I thought when you said 2 bands, I thought it was mentioned 3 droves.
Yep, he's going to be sending a bunch of droves in front of him with presents for Esau in the next verses. So, yep, it mentions just the numbers of people he have. And I don't remember the exact numbers. After reading and teaching a book for literature called The Chosen by Chaim Potok, no relation to the YouTube series, I don't think highly of the Hebrew rabbis and their obsessing over numbers, which words mean which numbers of people. But this word here in bands, very much, Jacob is using a specific word to explain to the God how many people he has that God has given him. Yeah.
A little thought on this. His prayer as it begins in verse 9. Wouldn't I believe that would go back to what God had just told him.
Yes, it's
about return. So
the reason why he's come back.
Right. So he knows, okay, God's will for me right now is this. And then verse 12, when he cites his promise, he's going all the way back to when he left the country
Yeah.
initially. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna do God's will, and I just thought, three things came to me, I just wrote down, there was humility, you know, about, Lord, I need your help. You know, I'm not worthy of your blessing, I'm sorry, and then I need your help, and then, you know, your promises, and there's a great illustration for us when we're desperate in our prayer, you know, that we're following God's will so that we know we're in the right place. We're humble about things, we're seeking God's help, we're claiming his promises, and that's great.
Absolutely. So, if I had time, I was going to get to some of that in the summary. You gave more than what I gave, and all of that is absolutely right. Using this as a template for how our own heart should be in praying to God is verse 9 referencing Jacob saying, I'm doing what you told me to do, I'm in your will. Verse 10, that I'm not worthy of your blessing, but you've blessed me anyway. Verse 11, I need your help. And then verse 12 is, I'm trusting in your promises. And that's the attitude we should have in prayer to God.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
No, it's very important. Like I said, you gave even more details than that. Like in terms of messages in chapter 32, this is a passage that's very applicable. So, any other comments on these verses? So then we have verses 13 to 21. Do I have a volunteer to read these? Go ahead, Steve.
He lodged there that same night and took of that which came to hand a present for Esau his brother, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milch.
It's milk. It's just a weird spelling of the word milk.
Oh, milk camels, okay.
Yeah.
But your goats, 40 kine, 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 foals. Delivered them into the hand of the servants. Every drove by themselves, and said to the servants, pass over before me, put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost saying, when Esau, my brother, meeteth thee, and asked thee, saying, whose art thou? Whither goest thou? Whose are these for thee? And thou shalt say, they be my servant Jacob, his present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded the second and the third of the call of the drove, saying, on this manner shall you speak to Esau when you find him. And say, he moreover, behold, my servant Jacob is behind us. He said, I will appease him, the present that goes before me, and after I will see his face, peradventure he will accept of me. So when the present overbore him, himself lodged that night in the country.
Thank you very much for the reading. I was thinking that's a difficult passage to read. You read it very well. So what's Jacob doing? In verse 13, he lodged there that same night. Where is the there? The same passage, same place he's been praying at. He makes his lodging there. He doesn't continue dividing up the companies. We're going to see at the end of it, the last couple of verses that Steve read, that he's there with his family, and then the very next verses, he sends his family ahead of him across the brook, and he's going to be there where he wrestles with the Lord. But all that to say, he is not splitting up any further. He decides he's going to send Esau a present. So what does he send? 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats. The first thing upon looking at this passage, look up the gender ratios of goats. They're normal. I realize at this point then, you, I guess, keep the she-goats for the milk and such, and you don't need as many he-goats. Those are the ones you eat. I was thinking that's probably why he has more she-goats than he-goats, is you eat the he-goats because the she-goats give you milk and such. 200 ewes and 20 rams, same thing with the sheep. 10 times as many female as male sheep. 30 milk camels with their colts. when I was thinking, why would he send the camels that have the young children? I was like, maybe he's trying to slow Esau down with this. They're not going to be moving fast, unlike normal. But he sends, and there are 30 camels that each have children. And unlike people, usually most animals bear children multiple to a litter. So it's likely more than just 30 camels and 30 colts, 30 camels and more than 30 colts. 40 kine, that's female cows, and 10 bulls, male cows. 20 she-asses, talking about donkeys, and 10 foals. So the donkeys he sent with them had 10 foals as well. And so he has his servants take these animals group by group and bring them towards Esau. And when Esau asks them, whose animals are these and what are you doing? His response is, they're Jacob's present for you and Jacob's behind me. Thinking he's going to hit 4 or 5 different droves, and maybe one of them is going to change his mind about his intentions for Jacob. And verse 20 is his exact reason. For he said, this is Jacob saying to himself, for this is Jacob's thoughts that the Lord knew. For he said, I will appease him, I will appease Esau with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So obviously Esau has not just tried to kill his messengers or any of the people he sent on ahead. Esau's intentions, Jacob thinks, are hostile, but he's like, at least he's going to give me a chance. Like, it's not like he's just indiscriminately attacking. He's going to give me a chance here. So if I send all these gifts ahead, when I see his face, peradventure, maybe he's going to accept me. So the rest of that day, we have verse 21, so went the present over before him, and himself, this is Jacob, lodged that night in the company. So he sends all those presents, all those droves before him across the brook, we're going to find out. And he himself stays where they've set up camp. He's giving Esau one day as he thinks to cool down and to enjoy all these gifts. So we will probably leave off here based on time, and the next passage, part of the passage is very important, and there's certainly not enough time to teach that before the main service. So any comments closing this part of Genesis 32? We definitely see both Jacob and Laban for different reasons in different situations, but both of them being in situations where they needed to trust the Lord. Both of them trusted the Lord and his faithfulness. And we've seen so far in Jacob's life that everything is worked out. The Lord has taken care of him and fulfilled his promises. And this part that he's currently in with Esau, what he thought would be the greatest danger to himself, the Lord completely undertakes there. But that's next week. Let's go ahead and close in prayer. Dear Lord God, we thank you for today and for the opportunity to study your word in general. We thank you that you've given us, even here, a testimony of your faithfulness and of your power in each of these situations. We thank you for the example you've given us of Jacob's response as well, and his relationship with you in his prayer. We thank you for, through Christ, the relationship that you've given all of us, which is even closer. We pray that we would seek to draw closer to you the rest of today, the rest of this week, and the rest of the time that you give us. We pray that we would be effective testimonies for you. In Jesus' name, amen.